Isn't it interesting? And I will just say at the outset, isn't it amazing that you have not heard absolutely anything about deportations in about 3 months? Think about it. When is the last time you even heard one story in the news about mass deportations, about a surge of Border Patrol and ICE to any major city? When even was the last time you heard anything like that? I think the last time that was even in the news had to have been early February. And it was in the news actually when ICE and Border Patrol were in retreat. After those 2 protesters were killed in Minneapolis, Trump sent out Tom Homan to the city, and gradually, incrementally, they retreated. They pulled all the thousands of Border Patrol and ICE out of the city, and then they said, that's it. That's it for all these big operations in the cities. No more raids. We're not going to go into people's houses. We're not doing these big patrols anymore. We're not surging personnel to these different liberal cities anymore. They basically said it's over. And since then, I don't think I've heard a single thing about this. The only development, and this is our big story tonight, get a load of this. So there's a few things we're going to get into tonight, actually. As it turns out, and this went completely unnoticed, way under the radar. Do you know that in the middle of April, ICE, for the first time since December of 2024, actually released the total number of deportations for a fiscal year? The last number that we got from ICE on the total number of deportations was December 2024, when Joe Biden was still the president. That is until the middle of April 2026, last month. And we got the total number of deportations for fiscal year 2025. Would you like to know what it was?
What is it?
The total number of deportations for fiscal year 2025 was 442,000. Now, a few things about that number.
Does that include?
In the first place, let's remember we were promised 1 million deportations per year. That was the goal. Joe Biden allowed 10 million illegal aliens in 4 years. If we even wanted to return all of those people in Trump's term and just get us back to where we were in 2020, you would need to remove 2.5 million per year. The goal was 1 million per year. What the administration actually recorded was 442,000. Now, here's where it gets interesting. They actually gave us a completely different figure in their press release at the end of 2025. In December 2025, the administration told us it was 600,000. And you might remember this. There was this triumphant celebration at the end of the year. They said the first year of the Trump administration, and we succeeded, mission accomplished. We deported 600,000 people. So which is it? According to the press office of DHS, at the end of last year, it was over 600,000. According to ICE's official statistics in April, it's about 440,000. So what accounts for the disparity? Well, in December 25, the New York Times actually broke down those figures, and they told us, no, realistically, it was about 230,000 deportations, and the rest were arrests. The discrepancy between the 230,000 deportations and the 600,000 number that the administration gave is that they arrested maybe 300,000 additional people. So how many actually were taken back to their country of origin? Well, really only about 230,000. The rest are people that have been apprehended. And on apprehensions, not everybody that gets...
So I saw a story out of Africa. So this was out of Sierra Leone. And I actually went to college with the foreign minister of Sierra Leone. So Sierra Leone made a deal. It's a country in West Africa. They made a deal with the Trump administration to receive third-party deportees. So they can receive people that were stateless or that their countries of origin didn't want to receive them. Sierra Leone would step in and receive them and occasionally forward them on to their third-party countries or some countries of origin or any country of their preference, right? I don't know what they do afterwards. And what I got from one of the news bulletins that came out of Sierra Leone was that that flight, a whole chartered flight that could take 300 people, only had 5 deportees on it. So the U.S. government spent all that money to send 5 people on a charter flight. There was actually more law enforcement on the plane that would return back to the U.S. than the people they deported. That's a waste of resource. Just to get 5 people to leave the country, it's going to cost us that much. And also, the deportations got chaotic. like people were being killed, people died, and you can make an argument whether they did some things that got them killed, but the fact that deporting people got this bloody and chaotic, it lost the appeal. People that were pro deportation all of a sudden were like, wait a minute, this is too chaotic. This could have been done a little bit more orderly. It became too much of a tension. There was a lot of tension, especially in blue cities and in liberal states. So I don't know if you want to call this a win for the left, but this has been chaotic, and I think this is why they've shifted policy away from it. I think they will deport you if they come across you somewhere, but I don't think they're enforcing it to the level that they thought they had to.
Gets arrested is even detained. So they may have arrested 400,000, 300,000 additional people. Many of them get turned away. Many of them are picked up and they're detained for a little while and then they let them go. And many of them are detained and they're still in detention. And many of them, they're in the process of adjudicating their claim with immigration. But probably the vast majority of them, they just let them go because they don't have the infrastructure for this. There was a famous example in California, I believe, where a bunch of anti-ICE activists actually stormed and broke into a detention center and they found that it was empty. So they recorded something like 200,000 deportations, real removals in December. In April, they tell us it's something like 440,000. So there's still a discrepancy. It's not 600,000. Well, is it 230,000 or is it 440,000? Well, today we finally have learned why we have this discrepancy. And this is really going to blow you away. I mean, this is really bad. This is really something.
What is it?
Is it 442,000 deportations? The answer is no. Because if you actually go on the DHS website and you look at their official report, if you look at the data set, they've done a little statistical trick to inflate the numbers. We're not sure exactly by how much. That's actually the purpose of this little trick. What Tom Homan came out today and said is that the administration is now combining the number of interior removals and returns at the border. And I'll tell you what that means in a moment, but this is a story. This is from Axios. It says, quote, "The White House plans to start counting people who were quickly removed after crossing the border in its deportation statistics. Republicans fumed that former President Obama was cooking the books when he used the same playbook to tout record deportations during his administration. White House border czar Tom Homan told the Washington Examiner on Wednesday that Trump will count deportations by combining work from ICE in the country's interior with Customs and Border Protection's quicker returns of people crossing at the border. ICE data released in April showed the agency deported 442,000 people in fiscal year 2025. So what does this mean? Well, during the administration of Barack Obama, you had two categories of what counts as a deportation: removals and returns. An interior removal is when ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, goes to, let's say, a Home Depot parking lot in Chicago, Illinois, or they go to a farm in Iowa, they go to a meat processing plant in Nebraska. And ICE will go there, they will find some illegal alien who has no papers, no citizenship, no residency. They will apprehend that person, detain that person, and remove that person from the country. That is one kind of deportation. That is an interior removal. And when we think of deportations, obviously that is what we're thinking.
Right.
What is catch and release at the border? It's when an illegal alien shows up at the border, we catch them, detain them, and then we release them into the interior of the country. And then we lose track of them. And you've got millions and millions of illegal aliens that have either jumped the border, or they're a catch and release, or they overstayed a visa, they slipped in between the cracks, whatever, and now we have these millions and millions and millions of people living inside our borders, inside the interior, inside every major city, and they've got no residency, no citizenship, no paperwork, and they have no legal standing to be here. And obviously that is the problem. When we talk about deportations, we're talking about rounding all these people up and shipping them back. We shouldn't have all these illegal aliens inside the country. They should be picked up and kicked out. That's an interior removal. But there's another category that is classified under DHS and their statistics as a deportation. It is called a border return. And a return is when an illegal alien, which in this case would actually really just be a foreign national, let's say you live in Guatemala, you live in Honduras, you make the journey up through Mexico, You arrive at our southern border, and at that point, you're a foreign national. You're a citizen of Guatemala. You're a citizen of Honduras. You emigrated. You surrender at a port of entry at the U.S. border. Border Patrol, rather than ICE, will pick you up and turn you away. You show up, either you're caught jumping the fence or you surrender at a port of entry. Either way, Border Patrol apprehends you and they send you back to where you came from. They pick you up and they say, nope, you gotta go. And this happens immediately. A border jumper will arrive at the border. Border Patrol picks them up and sends them back. Get out.
Oh, wow.
Interior removal, return at the border. One is enforced by ICE inside the interior and really is a deportation. The other is enforced by Border Patrol and it happens at the border. And we would just call that border enforcement. That's just having a border. Well, under the Obama administration, they just combined those statistics and called all of those deportations. And what started to happen is that...
So that's why Barack Obama statistically had the most deportations. A lot of people thought he was rounding people up. But at the time of Obama's presidency, there was a lot more people at the border. So everybody that got returned upon arrival and were not caught and released, or catch and release, they call it, that was counted as deportation in Obama's numbers, which gave Obama the deportation in chief type title, right? Well, I think Trump didn't understand that data set, and he thought that he needed to deport more than Barack Obama, which is why he has come under pressure, because it's really hard to attain that number unless you combine those two. So in short, our government is just cooking the books. Now where do I stand on this? Where do I stand on this? I support legal immigration, I do. But I also understand why sometimes people feel the need to break the rules to come to a place like this and to seek better opportunity. But you have to also understand the sentiments of the people that live in this country, that you want to at least play by the rules. And if you're not playing by these rules, then you're not accounted for. So there's a lot of pressure on schools. There's a lot of pressure on infrastructure. And that's a legitimate concern. Okay? So I understand both sides. But I think the way the enforcement was done was a little bit too chaotic. And this is why even the people that supported this type of enforcement all of a sudden started shifting their positions, because a few people lost their lives. A few American advocates lost their lives. Now, you may agree or disagree with them, they're on the left, but it's fine. They're still Americans, and they have the right to protest. And they went out and protested, and they got killed. Or they got shot, or whatever happened. I don't know the details of it, but people died. And that's not the way that we want our laws to be enforced. We want them to do it a little bit more methodically and with a bit more sanity, and that didn't seem like that's what was happening. Now, let me know what your thoughts are on what Nick had to say. I'm going to let it go a little bit, and then we'll wrap it up.
As the Obama administration went on, they removed fewer and fewer people, and they returned more and more. So the number of deportations remained relatively constant. They actually called Obama the deporter-in-chief. He got a lot of credit for being relatively conservative on the border, but that's because they were cooking the books. Obama had a very lax border policy, which attracted a lot of illegal immigration, and so they were turning away a ton of people. And every person they turned away, of which there were many, they added to this category of deportations. And so on paper, it said we have a ton of deportations. In reality, they weren't removing anybody from the country. We just had a very bad problem at the border. And many people were getting in, and many people were being turned away at the same time. Now, as this article says, under the Obama administration, and even now, many Republicans would say you're cooking the books. You're manipulating the statistics. You're deliberately creating this category error so that you can inflate the number of deportations. And that way it looks like you're a lot stronger on the border than you really are. Well, now the Trump administration, they're openly telling us they are doing the exact same thing. So think about it. In April, they tell us we have 442,000 deportations for fiscal year 2025. But that number, even according to their own website, includes removals and returns. Now, I want you to keep something in mind. There are still, under the Trump administration, thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of apprehensions at the southern border every single month. So even if you conservatively say that there are 10 to 15,000 apprehensions at the southern border every single month, even though that's a 90% reduction from the Biden administration, If you just do the math, that's like 100,000 to 200,000 returns every year. If you're including those apprehensions and returns at the southern border in your deportation statistics, then you've inflated the number by 100%. If you follow. Under the Biden administration, there were 100,000, 200,000 apprehensions at the border every single month. To his credit, Trump got that down to about 7,000 at the lowest, maybe 20,000 at the highest every month. It's a drastic reduction. However, if you are including those numbers in the deportation statistics, you are significantly padding the number of deportations that you're claiming, maybe by double. So if they say there's 442,000 deportations in April, realistically, that might include 200,000 people turned away at the border and 200,000 people that were actually arrested inside the United States and removed, which, by the way, would give credence to the original figure, which is that we might have only deported 230,000 people in the entire year, which, if you're following, is nowhere near the 1 million that was promised. And that's not even close. That's
Yeah, they don't have, it would be a whole military operation to get the numbers to 1 million. You just can't. Where are you going to put them? You have to put them in open fields. Where are you going to detain them? And then there's due process. A lot of them will go to court, and an immigration judge has to finally deport, like approve their deportation. You just can't snatch them and send them off. So with that due process and how long you're supposed to keep them and feed them, it's like a prison population that has rights, right? So it's more difficult to undertake than the political sound bites that they made us to believe. And a lot of people believe that this was doable. I always knew it's not possible. You just can't do it. Now, some people are going to get deported, which is why the policy, even for the left and for the right, when it comes to deportation, and also for the masses, so for Americans in general, where there's support, is deporting or removing people that have aliens that have committed crimes. There's a lot of support for removing the people that have committed crimes. Once you start taking people's abuelas and regular folks that are trying to work at the Home Depot that are not committing any crimes, then you lose the public appeal and the public support. Once you lose public support, the policy becomes very shaky. Then on top of that, people lose their lives in the process, and it becomes a huge blow up on national television. You lose the support of the people, and that's the whole point. Politics only works when you have the support of the people. Now, let me know what you guys think in the comment section, and I will definitely see you guys in the next one.